Want to know the real problem with DJing on drugs? You may like it. So for instance, let's say you take some drugs and you do an amazing set, then you could quite easily associate playing well to taking drugs, and before you know it, you may think that you need drugs to actually play a good show. Now, personally, I think we should look at drugs a little bit differently, and that is drugs can teach us feelings, and then once you've experienced those feelings, then you should endeavor to cultivate those sensations on your own. So for instance, okay, let's say MDMA, ecstasy, Molly, all of these drugs can open your heart. So instead of taking drugs to get a feeling, try to cultivate an overflowing feeling of gratitude by focusing on all the things that you're grateful for and let go of any grudges that are blocking your heart. Now, just a quick note on grudges blocking your heart, okay? I find one of the keys to manifesting is being in a high vibe state. So when it comes to issues you have with other people, okay, you have to ask yourself, is holding on to that grudge or resentment more important to you than reaching your goals? Because when you hold on to resentments, okay, it keeps you in a low vibe state, and your outer world quickly becomes a reflection of what you're thinking about most. So if you're, let's say, in a creative rut right now, my advice for you would be to think more about your ideas, the stuff that inspires you, more about ideas, less about other people. Now, that doesn't mean you don't care about other people, but instead of thinking about them, just enjoy that you like the time that you have together when you're with them. So that way, right, personally, you're standing straight, and in your own personal time, you can put your focus on developing your passions and you know what lights you up. So 100%, right, get excited about your goals. And when you think about them, instead of thinking, okay, how far you've got to go to achieve them, which can be really kind of out-psyching, think how far you've already come, even if it's just as simple as buying your first controller, or perhaps you bought my DJ course, okay? And by recognizing your progress and successes, you take on a vibration that opens the door to bringing your dreams through you as an expression of who you are. And trust me, right, taking drugs, okay, although it can heighten the bond that you have with existing friends and even the way that you experience music, okay, but when it does come to networking, okay, and let's say building new relationships, taking drugs is hardly putting your best foot forward. It can do all kinds of things to your energy. It can kind of confuse it a bit. So, okay, moving on though. Let's say you're into drugs that affect your mind, like LSD or even weed for some people, which honestly, DJing on that stuff, man, I don't advise it at all. But here's the thing, instead of needing those drugs to see things differently, do your best to keep an open mind and just perhaps don't label things or situations as good or bad. Just allow whatever happens to happen and look at each situation in your life objectively, knowing that how you interpret something is just reflecting back to you what you may need at that time to learn and to grow in order for you to move forward. So looking at what's holding you back. See, if you have strong feelings around something, the chances are that that feeling is there to teach you something, okay? So instead of hiding from it, go into the discomfort, as quite often in the discomfort, that's where your power is hidden, okay? See, the truth is, right, drugs can only ever open up and access what is already there. So if you use drugs, use them, but don't let them use you, okay? Now, how do you know the difference, okay? So drugs and things that are generally not good for you usually come with a feeling of wanting more. Now, that's actually a chemical response in the brain. So for instance, let's say you've spiked your dopamine artificially through alcohol, drugs, or even sugar, then you get high, okay? But then that high is followed by a low, and most people then want to get back up again. It's actually ironic, okay, as the thing that took you up is now also bringing to you a craving for more to stay up, and in that drug scene, that's called chasing the dragon. And to be honest, like chasing a mythical creature, your cravings to feel satisfied and even content are often short-lived. Okay, now all this though, it limits your ability to be present in the moment, coming from a position of strength, and it robs you of your innate power, as instead of going into the discomfort that is often a growth opportunity in disguise, you go for a quick fix. And long term, this giving in to short-term urges that aren't aligned with your purpose can affect your self-esteem, willpower, and confidence. Now, okay, how do I know all this? Man, through experience, of course. Like, I only teach things I know and I feel passionate about, and I try to provide content for you that's fueled with experience and also wisdom that you can learn from, I guess, to make your life easier. I love DJs. You guys are my people, okay? Now, I love teaching people how to DJ, but I also like providing content that can help you live a better life and navigate being a DJ. The fact is, right, I DJ'd every single week and was a nightclub promoter for almost 2 decades. That was my full job. And yeah, man, I've experienced drugs and alcohol problems. And to many people, on the surface, my life kind of looks great. That is, there was sex, drugs, rock and roll in abundance. And honestly, it was a way of life. And let's face it, right? Like, people think, wow, that's cool. But back in my day when I was living that dream, I was unhappy, man, because my desires were quite often out of control and I felt off purpose and not aligned with my personal code. So my advice to you is, what is your personal code, okay? And when you look closely at drugs and alcohol, are they bringing you closer or taking you further away from that code, your purpose, okay? So for instance, let's say, let's look at it another way. Let's say you had a daughter that, let's say, is 15 years old. Would you want her to think drugs are cool and a way to fit in? Or would you want her to know she has magic inside of her that she can tap into naturally by believing in herself and her own self-worth, which, if you ask me, helps establish a code that she could use for the rest of her life as her North Star? That she believes and that she knows that she is enough, okay? So the question now is, you can do that for her. Can you do that for yourself? Know that you're enough. See, it's time to make a change, okay? So let's find ecstasy in the music and show up for our communities and each other naturally. Let's access this shit. Now, the fact is, right, you don't need drugs to do a good set. Regardless of taking drugs, you're going to have good sets and you're going to have bad sets. It's part of being a DJ. DJing is about showing up for yourself and your audience. And if you can do this with an open mind and an overflowing heart, grateful for the opportunities to play, then you can use your sets to connect like-minded people through creating atmospheres like no one else and just creating these vibes that bring people together. Like, that's what it's all about. So let's live in the now, guys. Let's not chase any more dragons. Let's be the dragon together. We've got this. Okay, so much love, guys. Your DJ, teacher, and friend, Andrew.